Hold on a minute. Okay.
Hi everyone!
Hello!
I'm so excited to be doing a live in person, not on a split screen.
Yes!
Really looking forward to connecting with y'all today. As always, I like to set the space, set like an intention or say a prayer. So I have some locally grown sage here. I was gonna burn some of this. And if we just wanna take a couple deep breaths together and enter the space.
Thank you for doing that. That smells good.
You want some?
Yeah, baby. Give me some of that.
I would definitely
ancestral energy.
like to set the intention of connection and exploration today. Do you have anything you would like to set or call into the space?
I'm just calling in love, patience, compassion, understanding, open-mindedness. All the good juicy stuff, baby.
Yes, juicy. So I think it's really important to introduce ourselves. So do you want to introduce yourself? Let people know who you are, what your pronouns are, where you live.
So my name is Ricardo Castillo. My pronouns are he, she, they, them. I live in Sur Mesa, Kumeyaay land, and yeah, I am like 15 minutes away from you, so we're close.
Super close.
Yeah.
And I'm Preston. My pronouns are they and them. Also living in San Diego on occupied Kumeyaay land. I think it's really important to acknowledge that. Give a shout out to the people that were here way before either of us were.
Still here, baby.
Still here currently. Yeah, thank you for that reminder.
Thank you. It's a teamwork. About team what? Teamwork. Oh my gosh.
I'm so glad that today's gonna be giggles too. I feel like whenever we hang out, we always have just like a fun, silly energy. It's that Sagittarius energy that like reminds me to not take things so seriously and be like a little more lighthearted and go with the flow. So thank you for that reminder.
Thank you. I also want to thank you, honey, for you're like my safe place to land. You really are my safe place to land. You're my safe place where I can dress up and be myself. That is what you are for me, and I love and appreciate you so much. Thank you. Here we go.
Oh, I'm so excited to see what comes up. I know that.
So what are you? Do you feel like starting something? I mean, are you having a good day? What's going on?
Yeah, my day's been really good so far. I woke up super early at like 6:30. So that's been a new practice for me, just getting up early and being a morning person, which is something I never like thought. I historically have been like a night owl. I like always slept in. I usually worked like second shift or like overnight. So I've just never really been a morning person, and that's been a new practice for me to wake up every morning and start meditating or start with breath work. And like, it's now 2:00 and it's like, I'm ready for a nap. I already like did the things today and like I've been really productive. What's been going on?
Honey, that is the same thing with me. I have been waking up like at 3-4 o'clock in the morning, boo. I'm like, okay, sis, I guess it's time to get up and meditate. So I have been meditating for an hour and 20 minutes, which is something I'm doing. And it's been really amazing. And then I go for a hike in Mission Trails, and yeah, like around this time, I am ready for a nap.
Are you, for your meditation, are you doing like a guided meditation? Is that something you do on your own?
It is a guided meditation that I'm doing currently, yes. Mm-hmm.
Cool. Is that like through a program, through like YouTube?
It's through a program.
Mm-hmm.
I actually discovered this guy. His name is Joe. His name is Joe Dispenza, and I discovered him through Laverne Cox's podcast.
Yeah.
Laverne Cox, baby. Lifesaver. Oh my God. Amazing. I mean, my life has completely changed. Completely changed.
What are some things that stick out? Because I know we've listened to her podcast together, and you have plugged me into just like her podcast, and like she has incredible guests. So what are some things that like you've gained from that, or like is there something that sticks out of like, oh, this is a really cool like lesson I learned from her guests?
I mean, just talking about Joe Dispenza, I mean, the name of the book is called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And seriously, I used to have a lot of negative thinking about others, not about myself, just a lot of stuff. And with this program, you're actually able to slow down your mind and change all of those habits. Change, shift. So, I mean, right there, that is life-changing for me. I mean, I remember being in the car, driving, and just thinking about stuff that's happened during the day, and you know, like thinking about people, friends, judging people, all this stuff, right? And I've been able to stop doing that. Now and look, it is a process, right? It is a process. So there are times when I slip back into my old habits, but then I'm able to check my breath and then stop and say, okay, we're going back into your old negative patterns. Let's take a deep breath and focus and get back into, you know, just being happy and, you know, focusing on good stuff instead of being negative.
Absolutely. That in itself is a game changer. To just like have that awareness of self, awareness of others too, right?
Yes.
You mentioned earlier
Yes.
that like judging exterior, right? Judging other people.
Right.
And like IMO, that's also like something in you that's being reflected, right? Like either something that like you haven't accepted, something that like you maybe have resistance with. And like ultimately, right, that energy of judgment is a low vibration. Like that's not something that's high vibration. And I think that it is a reflection. It's a reflection of how we're feeling.
Yes. And I was able to actually flip that around and say, okay, I am judging this person for that. Let me look at myself and see, okay, am I doing the same shit? And I usually am. I usually am, bitch. But guess what? The mind loves to play tricks. The mind loves to play tricks, right? So you are not focusing on yourself. You are focusing on someone else. And so, judgment. And you know that queens are real judgy, honey. We're real good at it.
Have you read the book, The Velvet Rage?
You know, I feel like I started reading it, but I didn't finish it. What is it about?
So that is like the cliff notes of it that the author talks about, and also offering critique to the author because he specifically writes for like a gay white male perspective. So like challenging that, and I think like as a base, kind of a baseline of understanding that. One of his theories or something that he argues is that in general, queer people are always ostracized, always judged. So then that becomes the reflection. That becomes like the defense of like, hey, I'm gonna build my walls up to protect myself. And then that ends up being the projection of action. And so he talks a lot about that, of like, that is all kind of rooted in not feeling accepted, feeling judged from society or from your family, and then that then manifests as like what you're talking about, right? Like the stereotypical like catty queen, right, is rooted in feeling acceptance, feeling love, and like not knowing how to ask for that, not even knowing what that looks like or what that means. So his book, like, again, can definitely like critique some of his perspective in the book. And it was definitely like, for me, it was a huge, like, as far as queer literature goes, definitely one of the books that has impacted in the biggest way. And like, oh, that's really interesting insight. And like I said, it's very much written for the male perspective, very much written specifically for white gay men. And if you can see beyond that, I think that there are so many like lessons in that book.
I think I remember reading it, or at least getting into it, right? Like halfway through. And the problem I had with it is, like you mentioned, white, gay, I feel like it's even masculine, white, gay, masculine men. And I was like, okay, bitch. You know what I mean? But what I really took away from it is there's a lot of shame. Like, I don't even think we realize there's so much shame and feelings of unworthiness. Like, we have to do stuff to get and feel loved. We have to work, like you talk about, being really perfect, being this, being the most. Why? So that people will love us, and so we feel worthy, I guess, you know?
Absolutely.
I don't get it, but that's definitely, and you know, back to the Joe Dispenza book, one of the things that he asks during the meditation is you have to find an emotion that you want to release. And the emotion that came up for me was feelings of being unworthy. Yep. And so during the meditation, you have to say that, and you have to say all of the stuff that, why you feel unworthy, etc., etc., etc. Of course, I'm not going to get into all that, and it really helps because you're actually visualizing yourself taking the unworthiness and putting it into a box, and you're replacing it with love.
Cool.
So when you're done meditating, you feel a lot of love. Of course, microdosing helps. Thank you very much. And you just feel light, and you can start your day, you know, on a really positive note. And I know I have noticed if I skip a practice, or I've actually fallen asleep during the meditation. And so I have to start over because it just does not work. You have to be present.
I think that like consistency has been a really big lesson for me, and like having the structure of a regular practice or regular ritual, whatever that is, right? Whether that's meditating or praying or like having a physical practice, right? That consistency I think is so huge in like really getting to the place of having a breakthrough. And sitting in that, right? Like even showing up to meditate on the days that you don't want to. For me, those are the days that are most profound, is when I like push myself to do it and I'm like, oh, I'm dreading it the whole time. Why am I doing this? I hate doing this. Every single time that I like see that through, it's like, oh my God, I'm so grateful I did that. That just made my day. Or I just like learned this incredible thing. So I think like that, And like also straying away from capitalism, right? Because I don't think that like you always have to be doing or always have to be always be producing. But I do think there is some magic in the consistency and in the structure and the discipline, that it doesn't have to mean you're doing that at the expense of your health or at the expense of like self-care. But I do think there is power in the consistency and in the discipline of practice.
And that's what I am trying to instill in myself, because I grew up as a wild child. I did not have any kind of structure, any kind of consistency. And so that's what I crave. And so I've been doing it. I even have like my calendar set. I am just, baby, I gotta get shit done. I gotta get shit done. You know what I mean? And it actually feels amazing. It feels amazing.
Someone in the comments said too that even when you're sleeping, that you can still like get the benefits of that. I also have heard that too. Right. And I think that's always the times that I have fallen asleep in doing that is like, oh, I'm actually tired, or like my body needs to rest, or my mind needs to rest. So in the moment, like, yes, it's frustrating. It's like, fuck, I just missed out on the experience. And I think that like the medicine is rest. The medicine is letting your body dictate what you're feeling in that moment.
Well, the problem is with this guided meditation, the end of it is the juicy stuff, right? Where you actually have to engage with the meditation. Like I was saying, you have to say all of this stuff out. All of the lies you've been telling yourself, all of the lies you've been telling everyone. You have to get all this stuff out. So that's why, yes, baby, I love to sleep. I don't mind to sleep. But I've realized that it's better when you are wide awake and present, because you have to go through the steps. You have to do it. And you feel so much better, so much, lighter.
Absolutely. What are some other things? You mentioned that like microdosing has been a helpful tool for you. Do you want to share about that, or share about like other tools that have been helpful for you?
Well, I just started doing yoga. It's been like 3 weeks or a month since I started doing yoga, and baby, these hips are getting loose, and I love it. I mean, just call me Lucy. But so today, after my hike, I ran over and I did a yoga session. Exactly what I needed, because there's been a lot of family trauma coming up, and so there's been a lot of stored trauma, emotions coming up, and so there's been like a lot of anger coming up, and I'm usually not very angry at all. So the anger has been very interesting, and I've been crying, and I feel like I need to like hit something, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Get that anger out. So anyhow, I was feeling really kind of, I mean, I know I'm loved, right? But these emotions are just interesting. So I was just feeling really unloved, really, is how I was feeling. And I go to the yoga session, and guess what? It was all about love and being safe. And I mean, it was the exact medicine I needed. Isn't that crazy?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it's alignment, right? Like, I think even that, right, saying that it's crazy is...
It's not coincidence.
It's not crazy, right?
It's not.
Absolutely normal. And I think that it is confirmation that, like, you are in alignment, right?
Yes.
If that's already in your energy field, if that's already in your vortex, like, that is being attracted to you. I think even earlier when you were speaking about like being in a place of judgment and being in a place of not feeling loved, that's why you were putting out judgment, right? Is like, you're feeling judged in here and in here.
Right? We are judging ourselves. Oh my gosh, profound, right? Not only are we judging others, but we're judging ourselves. Oof. Can we sit in that for a second? Yeah, so one of the big things for me is being really compassionate. Being really compassionate with myself and being really compassionate with others. When I see someone is just, baby, they're just going through it, I'm like, oh, honey. Instead of judging, I am compassionate. I think, what could they possibly be going through? You know what I mean? What could they possibly be going through that is making them act out? You know, they're so angry. So, yeah, compassion, baby.
One of my friends introduced me to the idea that we're all reflections or aspects of God, right? So even when you see someone that's maybe particularly triggering or upsetting, that like, that is still an aspect of divinity. That is still some aspect of you that's being reflected back that you haven't accepted, or and not always. I think like sometimes there are people that are just assholes and that's like what it is. And I think that there's still opportunity to realize like maybe the source of that, and that's not your responsibility, right? Like, it's not your responsibility to make somebody not an asshole, but it is our responsibility how we respond to that. It is our duty, like, how we react or don't react to that. And not always. I think that sometimes that's not always a choice. Like, the first thing that comes to mind is like a kid, right? Like, a kid in a lot of ways is driven by what their parents doing. They don't have autonomy. They don't have freedom of choice. And I think that that is really scary that like that isn't happening. And that we've like almost forgotten that kids are also their own individuals, right? Like they can speak up, and if you ask them, they do. Like, kids will tell you exactly if their needs are being met. They still have a connection and awareness of mind, body, spirit. They haven't been disconnected yet. That happens later, right? That happens later, like after society or family's like, oh, this is how you have to act, or this is what you have to do. Kids have sovereignty. We're brought in this world knowing what's right and wrong. Being connected to our intuition, being connected to like our wants and needs, spiritually and non-spiritually. And then we're told not to, right? We're told like, oh, this is what you have to like, or these are the friends you have to have, or you can date somebody, but only if they're the same religious background as you, or only if they're from the same social class as you. That's adult shit. Kids don't have that.
Baby. I mean, you're preaching to the choir. You are preaching to the choir. You know? Yeah. What's coming up for me is I had a really difficult childhood, and no one asked me what I wanted. I was just basically an object for everyone's pleasure or displeasure or whatever. You know what I mean? So hearing you say that is like news to me. Sad, right? It's sad, but that's, you know,
And that was like taken from you. Do you know what I
Yes,
mean? Like,
yes,
I don't want to
yes.
like speak for you or your
Of
experience,
course,
but I
of course
believe
not.
that like you were brought into the world knowing that. And that was
Yes.
taken from you, right? Like
Yes,
somebody
yes.
else dictated, oh, you
Yes.
have to live this way or you have to
Yes,
act this way.
yes.
We talk about all the time about being policed for being femme, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm naturally feminine. Like, that's how I came into this world.
Ooh, you look
And like, that is something that like truly until the last couple years, like was something that like I was tormented by. And like, it wasn't affirmed. And like, I finally had to get to a place for me that it's like, oh, that's just like, okay. That's who I am. Period.
This is who you are, baby. And guess what? You're stuck with it. It's not gonna change. It's not gonna change. And like you, I finally embraced my femininity as well. And when I did that, guess what? I started loving femmes. Because at first I did not like other femmes. But when I embraced my femininity, I started loving femmes. And now I'm pansexual, baby. So I just love everybody. Come on in. All is welcome.
Even that, I think, has been a journey. Even like in the
Yes.
time that I've known you, you haven't always identified with that.
No.
So like, what a beautiful thing for you to like allow yourself that, right? Like allow yourself that space to explore, and also acknowledging like the privilege in that, right? Like not everyone has that opportunity. Not everyone is allowed that. So what a beautiful thing to like have that awareness and tell yourself that like you're worthy of that. Like you deserve that. You deserve love in any form, period.
Mm-hmm. And I really feel that all of this, at least all of my growth and transformation, happened during the pandemic, baby. So we had all this time to, reflect on our lives, which is a privilege.
Absolutely.
It's a privilege. Not everyone does. So yeah.
I mean, not everyone had time of reflection.
A lot of people
had to work through it.
are still
Like,
working.
they didn't have that time to pause.
Yep.
It's funny too because you said pandemic, and I think that like the last 2 years we've been so conditioned to like think of COVID, and today actually is World AIDS Day, which is like, that is also a huge pandemic that's happening in our globe that like isn't talked about, and I think is massively rooted in shame and our Victorian ideas of sex and what that looks like. And I don't know, I just think that that's such a huge thing that has directly impacted our communities and continues to impact our communities. And there's also tons of people that are living happy, healthy, productive lives. And that doesn't have to mean like this god-awful thing or this death sentence, but I think, again, like that has been so much of the messaging around shame. And it's not, I don't know if it's been different for you, but I know generally in queer spaces, like that's not something that people talk about. It's like, let's like not go there today. Or like, I don't want to talk in this way, right? And I think that it's, I think about this often actually, that like had our response, and like I was not here on this earth initially when the original like AIDS epidemic happened in the 80s. I wasn't here. But I hear stories all the time.
I was
of,
here
like,
for you,
people
sis.
that I know that like have lost all of their friends because of that. And like not having support, not having community support, not the government not even acknowledging that it was an issue, right? And because it was like, oh, it's this gay thing, like whatever. And so I think now, like, how that would maybe be different, how it would be responded to differently, how it would be addressed differently if it wasn't seen as like this gay thing, right? And was just like, hey,
And think about all of the older men from that generation that they like suffered PTSD.
Oh, absolutely.
Imagine all of your friends dying. Imagine. And then you survive, so you have survivor's guilt. You know what I mean?
Yeah. One of my really good friends is like that, actually. He's in his 60s, and all of his friends have died.
Yeah. I cannot imagine. I just cannot imagine. Oof.
I think it's important too to have conversations like this, right? And make it normalized, make it something that like we can talk about, that we can go and talk about our friends with, that it's not this elephant in the room that is never addressed, that it's like, hey, this is something that's like happening, let's talk about it.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of us don't have the tools, baby. A lot of us don't have the tools. That's definitely something. Yes, you know? I mean, one of my favorite quotes is hurt people hurt people. So I feel like we're all just going around hurting each other. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And until we have these tools where we learn how to say, hey, I didn't mean to hurt you. Let's talk. Ooh, honey. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps. I mean, you know, communication. Communication really is key. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I'm like receiving.
Yes. Hurt people hurt people. I mean, right?
Absolutely.
It's so simple, but it's so profound. Because that's exactly what we're doing. You know?
I recently had an experience with that. I had a friend that earlier this year, we like had a falling out, and I was avoiding her. I was like, I will never talk to that bitch ever again. Like, fuck her. And I, about 2 weeks ago, was watching a video about forgiveness, and it's actually from Will Smith, and the video is like only a couple minutes, but basically he's saying that like we can find forgiveness for us. It doesn't have to be for that other person. But if we have that space in our hearts or in our mind, that clears up space for us. And so I ended up having a conversation with her, and it was so incredible and so healing for both of us. Like, we talked about that for a while, of like how we were both responding to her, right? She had hurt my feelings, so I was like, fuck you, I don't want to talk to you. And then she was responding to me the same way.
Yes.
Of like, well, you don't want to talk to me, well then fuck you, I'm not going to talk to you. And so
and
it
you're
was
both
like
judging each other.
Literally
for the
6
same
months,
thing, for the
or
same exact
8
thing.
months of not even speaking a word, no text, no nothing. I had totally written her off. And I finally was just like, wow, I need to forgive her for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt so good to like make that choice of like a forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
That was not easy for me. I was definitely like sitting in my ego, sitting in my hurt feelings, sitting in like, fuck her, how does she not see from my perspective? And like ultimately what I realized is like, I wasn't meeting her where she was. I had expectations of like, oh, you need to do this, and you have to act in this way, and this is what it means to be a good friend. That's not what I meant for her. And so I was getting like more pissed, right? Like, okay, you're not doing these things that like you should be doing. And it's like, well, I wasn't telling her that's what I needed. I wasn't telling her that was my expectation.
Baby. I guess maybe you felt like your silence was telling her.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we've talked about this before, that like that is a pattern of avoidance, right? That was me like avoiding confrontation and avoiding like having a conversation. I was just like,
uncomfortable conversation.
I'll just never talk to her.
But that's where there's so much growth. Uncomfortable conversations.
Absolutely. That was such a growth conversation for me. And I ended up a couple days later running into her in person. And we were just like, wow, like this is so divine, and so grateful that we had that conversation.
Right.
And then I was like, hey, we can just meet each other where we are today and have a conversation. And we had this really beautiful moment where she asked me, she was like, what's something that I can celebrate you in your life right now?
Mm-hmm.
And reframing from a place of judgment or avoidance or addictive, toxic traits, and how to reframe that in the moment of like, what's something that we can celebrate together.
Mm.
Can I ask you that question? What's something I can celebrate you for?
What's something, oh baby, what's something you can celebrate me for?
Mm-hmm.
Just for all of the work that I'm doing, baby. I feel like it is a lonely road, you know, but I'm learning and I'm growing and I'm processing. But ooh, baby, celebrate me for all the work that I'm doing, honey, the personal growth, you know what I mean? Because it's really easy to just go back to your old ways, go back to your old habits. But guess what? You have awareness now. So now you're aware that you're avoiding. You're aware that you're being judgy. You are aware of all of the hurting and all that stuff. So, yes. So I'm just doing the work, baby. I'm just doing the work. So
I definitely see you for that, and I celebrate you for that. I brag on you all the time, like in your presence and not in your presence. Like, even just in the last couple months, like I've really seen you take that initiative. I've really seen you like taking that step for yourself. Not for someone else, not for a lover, not for a partner, not for a friend. Like you doing that for you. And like, that's reflecting in your life. I see that.
Yes.
So I celebrate you for that. And I will continue to celebrate you.
thank you, baby. How about you?
I really want to celebrate the workshop series that I've been doing, that you have attended.
Yes.
And that has felt so good to like co-create that with community. And not feel an attachment of ego, not feel an attachment of like, oh, this is my project. It's like, no, this is something that
we can all benefit
I'm
from.
creating with the community. And like, that has been so beautiful to witness, and like so beautiful to see kind of both sides, like see the facilitation side and also see the participant side, and not be attached to either of them. Just be like, hey, I'm the space holder and making sure that everyone's safe. And other than that, it's like, it's up to y'all, you know, like, and I have been so pleasantly surprised that people showing up saying like, hey, I'm doing the work. How can I do this in a collective way? How can I better serve my community? So yeah, I really want to celebrate that. I want to celebrate, my divine inspiration in that. Like, that isn't just me. It's also like the work of the ancestors. It's work of like people that have come before me and been doing liberation work. Like, I'm not the first person to do that. And also giving myself flowers for doing it right now.
Flowers, baby. Flowers, baby. Flowers. Well, I know the last workshop was really helpful because it really showed me that, you know, everyone's story is so powerful. And you can learn from everyone's story.
Absolutely. Shout out to Juan.
Hey, Juan.
It was such an incredible workshop. I actually was just talking about that with Nikki this morning.
Yeah.
And she was like, holy shit, that workshop was so profound. So yeah, almost a month later, I'm still feeling like the medicine from that.
Yes. And I actually, I'm doing something right now, and I actually went back to that workshop and I was like, okay, I am going to lean into my story and be vulnerable. So here we are.
Yay.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing it with me and feeling like safe and comfortable and
Thank
sharing
you,
it with
thank
the
you.
world.
Thank you, baby. Thank you.
Absolutely. Is there anything else, any like final thoughts or like any last like nugget of wisdom for people?
I would have to say, be kind to yourself. We are so easy to forgive other people, but we're so hard on ourselves. So please, please be kind to yourself. Be gentle. Be compassionate with yourself. Love yourself, baby. Shit, you're stuck with you, right? That's it. Can't change. So yes, be kind and gentle with yourself.
I love that. I've enjoyed you so much today. Thank you for showing up.
Thank you, baby.
As your full self.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing the space with me and like allowing me to witness you. You're truly like one of my closest friends, and like I am so grateful that we've been reintroduced into each other's lives again, because we didn't talk for a couple of years. We like casually were like, hey, what's up? But like we didn't really connect for a couple of years. So
Right.
I definitely believe that
And
that
here
was
we are.
divine timing.
Yes.
That like we needed to do our own separate healing to now like be able to come together and do some healing.
And that's 100%. And there's no mistakes. We are sitting in our purpose.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I would love to just like officially kind of close the container. Do you want to snap with me?
What?
Snap with me?
Oh.
So we'll do, on the count of 3, we'll do 3 snaps.
Oh.
And then close it
Okay.
out.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you, baby. Bye. Bye, everyone.